Chelney alongside Nick Zararis, and I'm congested. I think Nick is a little congested. We're all good. We're pros. We carry on. We push through. Well, Nick, they look terrible against Vancouver. They played well against St. Louis, but got dumpstered anyway, and they lost another one against Washington before finally winning the rematch yesterday. Oh boy.
I think we can all agree they punched above their weight for as injured as they were for a lot of December. We've talked a lot that without Heedle, without Kako, you are forcing guys like Jody Brodzinski, Tyler Pitlick, Barkley Goodrow into more significant roles. And when you have a thinner lineup, a lot of your offensive responsibility is going to fall on a handful of guys. For a lot of December and some of November, they were able to get the occasional Will Cooley, Jimmy Vesey, or a goal from a defenseman. Over the last 2 weeks, when it's felt like they can't get a goal to go their way in any of these close games, even the Washington game on Saturday, where they didn't play particularly well, but Panarin misses that wide open net where normally the way he's played this year, he buries that. And then a few minutes later, they had the jam play at the front where I want to say it was Keandre Miller on the opposite side, got a cross crease pass from Blake Wheeler, and the net was wide open, and he just missed the net. Even not playing particularly well against Washington, that game was very winnable as well. Vancouver is the game I would highlight and circle because that was the Rangers' star players, their best players, not being ready for the moment. There were a lot of mistakes by good players, guys like Ryan Lindgren, guys like Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, guys who play better, who know better. And I think that's what we can highlight over the last 2 weeks. It's easy to say, well, Gaudreau, Pitlick, Trouba, they're not that good. Yeah, but at the end of the day, we all are kind of in agreement that if the Rangers are going to do anything this year, it's the guys like Fox, like Zibanejad, Trocheck, Panarin, Kreider, etc., that are going to have to do the bulk of the heavy lifting here. That if those are the guys that are making the mistakes, not that they're playing poorly, but they are making mental mistakes that are directly leading to goals against, this experiment is not going to bear fruit the way we want it to. When you go back and watch a lot of these sequences that went against them in the last week, it's guys who know better. It's Miller. It's True. It's Fox. It's Zibanejad. Like I'm gonna pull it up right here. Hang on. This is from the Washington game on Saturday. This is Miller taking the shot. Washington comes back the other way and scores on the counter here. Miller needs to realize that 3 of the 5 Rangers on the ice are all on one side, that he doesn't have a clear shooting lane, and there's one person behind him. Taking this shot is a terrible decision, and it directly leads to a goal against. Out on the sequence, you see there were 3 Rangers behind the play, entirely out of the play. Washington's going to have a numbers advantage coming back. This is not rocket science. This is, I need to take the safer play. We're shorthanded. We don't have as much talent as we usually do in our lineup. So we need to be smarter. Same thing with the fourth Washington goal on Saturday, where Adam Fox steps up in the defensive zone trying to force the turnover because he realizes, oh, we've got numbers in the neutral zone. He misses it. Dylan Strome goes around him and he finds TJ Oshie. If Adam Fox is making those types of mistakes, the Rangers are not going to win a lot of hockey games. It's that simple. As they get healthier, Kako coming back, very helpful because it pushes other guys further down the lineup. That deepens the lineup. But I am not as worried, angry, whatever word you want to use to describe about the last week, because we know if the Trocheck line isn't scoring at 5-on-5, and they're not going to score on the power play, which they didn't on Saturday. They didn't score on the power play on Saturday. If they're not going to get a Trocheck goal or a power play goal, and they're not going to win the way the roster is right now, and that's the calculus.
The Rangers need more than one line that can do something. Like, I understand that, and again, I'm congested, I apologize. I understand that Kako's been out, Heedle's been out, the top line hasn't had a right winger. Like, I get all that. Zibanejad and Kreider just need to do more at 5-on-5. I'm sorry, like, this is getting a little ridiculous. I'm pretty, when it comes to those guys, I understand that they're really good on the power play, and in a lot of big moments they show up and they produce, but like it's getting a little ridiculous that for weeks on end now, Mika Zibanejad has been a nothing burger at 5-on-5. He's also kind of been a nothing burger on the power play too. Like,
the power play regression was going to happen. That's the one caveat I'll say.
If you want to say that, that's fine. But even then, do so, like if you're genuinely a top player on a team, you have to at least do something every now and again at 5-on-5. He hasn't done any of that. Like that's why, every now and again when he goes through these stretches, I call him, a better version of Mike Hoffman, because that's kind of how he plays. Like he's there. He's physically on the ice doing cardio, but like he's not contributing on either end of the ice. And this is one of my biggest frustrations with Zibanejad. I don't understand where these lows come from and why they happen.
So what I will say about that, Zibanejad needs time, he needs space because the types of plays he excels at, those rush opportunities, those cross seam passes, that when the game tightens up, when there's not as much room, when he's well defended, he is not going to be able to do as much. That's been the knock against him his entire time in New York. I mean, I that was my main argument. I wrote 4 years ago, 2 years before they gave him the long-term extension that's going to keep him a Ranger for the rest of his career. He is a good player, but his style is not conducive to success in the playoffs. And this is something you and I have talked about a lot in regards to other guys around the league, that somebody like a Nikita Kucherov, a Matthew Tkachuk, a Nathan McKinnon, they have that mean son of a bitch in them that sometimes, they're going to make the play that a Zibanejad isn't, because they're going to be willing to engage at the net front. They're going to be willing to tie somebody up defensively in a way that Zibanejad won't, because he is not a physical player. And that is not to say you can't be effective without being a physical player. But if we're talking about two players who are the exact same type of player, same talent level, but if one is capable of playing physical on top of that, you're going to take that every time, because hockey is an inherently physical sport. So speaking of Zibanejad, this play drove me up the wall on Saturday. Zibanejad had 2 chances to take this puck away from Kuznetsov, and instead of moving his feet, he swung his stick at him. Kuznetsov went around him. Kuznetsov cleared every single defender, because this play drove me up the wall. Because the Rangers have a clear numbers advantage. The Rangers have 5 guys back. Washington has 3. Washington is going for a change. The Washington defensemen are coming off the ice, and all New York has to do is hold Kuznetsov to the outside. But Zibanejad, instead of moving his feet, swings his stick at Kuznetsov 2 times, misses the puck both times. Kuznetsov goes around him. Kuznetsov goes around Adam Fox. Because the defenseman on the other side is caught up the ice, they come back around, and I'm going to go to the next slide here with the freeze frame, and this ends in a goal. When you have a 5-on-2 numbers advantage and it ends in a goal, that is bad defense and that is laziness. They have 2 guys marking at the net front here. I think this is Dowd. That might be Oshie, but they have 2 guys at the net front here, Gaudreau and Keandre Miller, marking at the net front. And Kuznetsov, who just skated the puck all the way around, is over here on the circle on the left side. It is a 5-on-2 numbers advantage. And because no Ranger was willing to tie up at the net front, and because Zibanejad moved his stick instead of his feet, it's a goal against. And I know you're going to say, well, Nick, that's one play. When shit isn't going right, it is just one play that swings a game. The Rangers controlled that game on Saturday, I would say, for a good 70% of that game. And they let Washington hang around, and 2 mistakes end up in the back of the net. That goal, and then the one I was talking about before where Adam Fox here, I'll do it now and get it over with so I don't have to come back. Fox steps up to make this play here because he sees he's got 2 guys in the neutral zone. And the only person back is Braden Schneider. Coming at Braden Schneider are Dylan Strome, TJ Oshie, and Max Pacioretty. Those are 3 good hockey players. Fox needs to realize, hey, this is a risky play, and if I don't make the play here, it's probably going to end up in the back of our net, because that's the way the Rangers' luck has been the last week and a half, 2 weeks. When it feels like everything that can go wrong is going wrong, the puck's going to end up in the back of the net. The Rangers couldn't buy a save for the last week. It's just, when things are going bad, your mistakes are amplified. And that's really the case of what happened over the last week. They're not as bad as they played over the last week, but that's the worst case scenario for what the Rangers are, is what happened over the last week.
One of the things, too, that I want to highlight, the Rangers defensemen, for some reason, they've started doing this where they've stepped up to deliver hits at the blue line as the play is going the other way. Like, Adam Fox did this against Jordan Kyrou in St. Louis. The play was going the Rangers into the neutral zone, and the Blues were counterattacking. Adam Fox, for some reason, decides to hit Jordan Kyrou. Okay, sure, whatever. The problem was is that Kyrou made it back to the offensive zone before Adam Fox and then scored a goal. So not only do you take yourself out of the play, you knock a guy down, he beats you to the puck, and you essentially leave your defensive partner out to dry because you take yourself out of the play. The guy that you just hit is careening towards the net. You are 40 feet behind. Your defensive partner is out in no man's land, and then they score. It's like I don't know what has changed over the past few weeks that Rangers defensemen have now suddenly thought that this was a good idea. And it's not just Fox. Like Trouba's done this. Other defensemen have done this. This is just one of the biggest examples that I have at the top of my head. Like, why Rangers defensemen all of a sudden are choosing to do this instead of playing defense is just baffling to me.
I think okay, so this might be a case of anecdotal versus statistical evidence where it feels like because all of these mistakes are ending up with pucks in the back of the net, we are more inclined when we go back and look at the tape to see that this results in goals against. Like I just showed you. I pulled up screenshots from the game on
But
Saturday.
even if that didn't go in the net, like that's still a dumb play.
I don't disagree with you, but I think we're more inclined to not think about it because if it works, it works. But I agree with you. In an ideal world, you have to assess that risk. We talk about this all the time in regards to Trouba, that he's a really high leverage player, that he takes a lot of risks in the neutral zone going for those hits, because if he doesn't get there in time, the puck gets around them. Same thing happened in the Vancouver game on Monday last week. There were 2 times that exact type of thing happened. Fox stepped up to deliver a hit to Pedersen. Pedersen went around him. And Schneider did the same thing. I think it was to Hoglander, but it doesn't matter to who it was, where they stepped up, they bumped the guy. They didn't force a change of possession, and they still ended up they didn't end up with possession. The guy got around them, and they took themselves out of the play. I'm all for aggressive play in the neutral zone. That's been an issue for the Rangers over the last week, that they've been far too passive in the neutral zone. They've let the other team go around them, or they've delivered hits a second too late or a second too soon, and the play hasn't worked. When you are and I don't want to discourage aggressive play because that's something that the Rangers have kind of lacked at times over the last couple of seasons, where guys like Zibanejad, guys like Panarin, they've been passive. They haven't been as engaged in non-offensive aspects of hockey. But when you are taking risks like this, you are setting yourself up. When you are in a situation like they were on Saturday, where that game was there, that game was wholly winnable. Washington's not a good team. Let's just be honest here. The Rangers have significantly more talent than Washington. And yeah, Charlie Lindgren had a really good game. Okay. That's going to happen when you give other teams opportunities to hang around. But when you allow a team like Washington to hang around, they have enough talent that they can take advantage of those situations. Same thing with St. Louis. St. Louis isn't a good team, but Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas, they've got enough individual, Pavel Buchnevich, enough individual guys that they can take advantage of
The
your
propaganda
mistakes.
lives on.
Oh, I could write an entire book on why that
Yeah.
trade was a bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I did the hypothetical roster for what it would have looked like, because the Rangers have just lied about the whole, well, we couldn't afford to keep him. They could have kept him for 2 seasons. I did the math. They could have had him and Jack Eichel for 2 seasons if they really wanted to make it work. They did not value what Buchnevich brought to the table. They opted to get a second round pick and a different type of skill set because they did not think Buchnevich's skill set was that valuable. And they are still trying to replace that first line right wing spot for the 3rd consecutive season now. But enough about that. As far as looking ahead, trying to get a handle on it, I think we can safely diagnose the Rangers' big issue as being a little too streaky at 5-on-5. And that's really the root of a lot of these issues. They are not scoring enough at 5-on-5. And if the power play doesn't score, I mean, the stat we've been saying all season, the 4 games the Rangers lost to the Devils in round 1 last year were the 4 games they didn't score on the power play. We know what the math for this team to be successful looks like. They need to get either really good goaltending, win at 5-on-5, or win on special teams. Right now, they are not winning with goaltending. And when the power play isn't there, they don't even have one of the 3 legs of success right now. So for the Rangers to get this right, they desperately need to stay healthy We can't be seeing Jake bunch of letters anymore. Tyler Pitlick, ideally, not in the lineup when
Sure.
everybody's healthy. No more AHL guys. Like, in an ideal world, if Johnny Brodzinski's your 13th forward and he's got to play, once a month, okay. If Johnny Brodzinski is an everyday player, you're a little bit on the shallow end as far as lineup. The Rangers need to get healthy, and they really need to get clarity on the Filipino situation. And I know I've been talking for a minute, but I brought it up. So Emily Kaplan said on Saturday, the Rangers do still expect Filipino to come back. So help's not coming till the deadline because of the way the cap situation works with long-term injured reserve. So it is on this group to figure it out until then, because if Heedle's coming back, they do not have access to the money they would if he were on the roster and accruing cap.
It's gotten so bad that Rangers fans yesterday were chanting "shoot the puck" on the power play, which is something that when you have a top power play unit, in the league, you shouldn't have to have fans do that. But when you just pass 78 times over the course of 2 minutes and then just end up not doing anything, yeah, the Rangers right now are way overcomplicating the power play. They had a great system, but now they've chosen instead to you get it. No, you get it. Okay, but what if we do this? Okay, wait, but you get it. Wait, but this guy's open now. You should get it. It's like that's fantastic and all, but eventually, I don't know if you know this, Nick, but if you don't shoot the puck, you don't score. You have to get the puck on net. Like, this is the most basic thing I could possibly say, but if you pass it 964 times on the power play and you don't get any shots on goal, you don't score. And the one thing, too, that I want to, Joe Micheletti yesterday on the broadcast was like, Rangers need to have more than one line that can score. Joe Micheletti's saying it. Like, this is not a secret to anybody that's watching watching this team right now. If Joe Micheletti's saying it, you damn well sure know that Peter Laviolette knows it, and Chris Drury knows it too. Only one line right now is producing much of anything for the Rangers at 5-on-5, and when that happens, coupled with the power play, playing hot potato as opposed to just actually getting pucks on net, this is what happens. The Rangers have scored more than 3 goals one time in 2024. I understand that usually when it comes to the Rangers, if you score 3 goals, that should be enough to win you a game. When things don't go your way and you can't get a save, and there's a lot of, and the other team is scoring goals in bunches, you got to figure out more ways to create offense yourself. Okay, but the problem is that the power play is not shooting, and no one other than Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere are doing much of anything at 5-on-5. So where is the offense going to come from?
So 2 things on that. Number one, I think part of that is just, I don't want to say it's a confidence thing, but I was talking about it before in regards to defense, when you're stepping up to make that play in the neutral zone to throw that check. When everything that can go wrong starts bearing down on you and the power play's out there and in the back of their minds, we got to score. You're trying to overcompensate. You're trying to not make a mistake. And in trying to not make a mistake, you're more inclined to overpass than you are to overshoot. Because if you pass it and it gets successfully to the next person, you're not turning the puck over. You're not missing the net. And then number 2, I will always defer to the people on the ice because the angle is different. And I understand this is an extreme case as far as not shooting at all. But for the most part, when I go to a game, like I was at the Canucks game on Monday last week.
Stop going to games, Nick. Stop going to games.
Yeah.
Every time you go, it's a disaster fire. Stop going.
Yeah, no, my goal differential at the Garden is like 18 to 9.
Stop going.
Between the Buffalo
Give
game
me the
in
tickets.
December,
They always
Carolina,
win when I go. Just give me the tickets. I'll go for you.
I got the 2 Jimmy Vesey goals against the Devils. Maybe I should just go to Rangers games on the road. That might be the key to success there. But as far as looking at the roster, we all know that they need help. They need more guys. The way the bottom 6 is currently constructed is to hold on for dear life. And when it is hold on for dear life in your bottom 6, you are going to have a hard time winning in the playoffs. We have talked about this ad nauseum that when the Rangers were going right in November and December, it was because they were getting those unlikely goals, like Johnny Brodzinski scoring 2 goals in his first week. He was a point per game those first 7 or 8 games he was up, and then he went back to being what he is, a career AHL player. That's not a knock against him, but when you are a team that has Stanley Cup aspirations, you just have more quality depth. That's not to say the Rangers aren't going to make improvements. They're going to add guys to this roster. We know that. They cannot be content with the way this group looks right now. We all know they thought they could facsimile Blake Wheeler into a passable player at this point. His point totals will end up looking fine at the end of the season because he's played with actually good players. But we all know if Blake Wheeler's playing in the top 6 in the playoffs, the Rangers aren't doing shit. We can all accept that. We all know that. They need to add, and it's why I'm not going to lose my mind about these games in January, February, etc. Because for 2 reasons. Number one, this isn't the final roster, and number 2, barring absolute disaster, we know they're making the playoffs. So it's not so much about winning these games, it's about developing better habits. The way I would describe the last 2 weeks, so you know how everybody goes into the new year, we talk about it January, New Year's resolutions, I'm going to start going to the gym, eating a little bit better, and you get into that good rhythm for like 3-4 weeks, and then you got to stay late at work one day and you don't get to go to the gym, and then the next day it's raining and you're like, I don't really want to stop on the way home. And then you've missed the gym 4 days in a row, and then it's Friday, and it's like, it's Friday, I want to start my weekend early. That's what the Rangers did. They came into this season, they got really good habits out of the gate. They were playing strong in the neutral zone. They were playing really good defense. They were over 50% expected goals. And then they got a couple injuries, and they missed a couple games of playing good 5-on-5, but they were scoring on the power play, so they didn't really think it was that big of an issue. And then all of a sudden, the Rangers haven't been to the gym in 3 weeks, even though they started out the year in great shape. It's really easy to form bad habits, and 2 weeks doesn't define a season, but the last 2 weeks are, that's the extreme end of the spectrum, where if there aren't corrections, there aren't improvements, it's very easy for the Rangers to fall back into who they've been for, 3-4 years now. It is really easy to fall back into those bad habits if there isn't a
And
correction.
by the way, I can now understand why teams date Eric Gustafsson, they don't marry him. Like, this is a guy, and I told you this yesterday, when Adam Fox was out, he was fantastic. I mean, Eric Gustafsson was so good. He was leading the team, offensively. He was driving a lot of the defensive play. He was outstanding. Adam Fox comes back. Since that point, he's been terrible. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe he's somebody that thrives under high usage and falters under low usage. I'm not really sure what the problem is with him, but especially defensively, I think he was responsible for that really bad clearing attempt that led to Washington's goal yesterday. He was so good when he was the guy as Adam Fox was out. And then Adam Fox comes back, and he has, since that point, he's looked miserable, and there needs to be a case study on people like that. I don't it's just strange to me.
So one thing I will point out in regards to that, I am willing to accept the Rangers as a team have not played as good hockey as they did that first month. And I don't think Eric Gustafsson, the individual, is good enough where he can impact the ice enough where he's going to make everybody on the ice better. That's the one caveat I will say to that. He has not been nearly as good as he was that first month and a half, 2 months. I mean, he was like a point per game defenseman that first month and a half of the season. During that Fox absence, he was running the power play effectively. So he's come back down to earth. I don't think Eric Gustafsson is ever going to be somebody you prioritize. But if he's your 6th defenseman, I think you're in okay shape. As far as the Rangers' biggest issue, other than the lack of 5-on-5 scoring, they got to get the goaltending going. But the frustrating part of that is there's no real way to spur that. It's not like juggling the lines. It's not like running an extra practice. Some of this is mental. You have got to get these guys, Quick and Shesterkin, into a rhythm. And I'll pull it up because I think it's worth pointing out. Hang on. Let me make sure I remember how to do this. I haven't had to do this in a while. Add source. Where is it? It is share screen. Yeah, share screen. Here we go. Okay, so share, blah, blah, blah. So it should be up on the screen now. This is Evolving Wild. This is the rolling save percentage per game. They're at 8. They had an 895 save percentage in game 42. So this is each game on the season, 42. They've played 42 games so far. This is just the save percentage for that given game But you see, over the last 15 games, they've been under league average most nights in their goaltending. And that is not a stinging indictment that, hey, what's wrong with the team? What's wrong with the team? But, when you are built, part of the Rangers calculus in assembling their team is that we're going to get top 5 goaltending in the league every night. And that's going to make up for some of our shortcomings in other parts of the lineup. And they still don't have that. They're going to have to adjust how they're playing. So that's just something I wanted to point out, that I'm not overly worried about Shesterkin long term. If this continues, yes. But this is somebody with entitled to the benefit of the doubt in a way that, I don't think Blake Wheeler, Barclay Goodrow, Nick Bonino, Jacob Trouba, etc., are going to magically start playing play driving elite 5-on-5 hockey. Shesterkin, I know, is capable of playing like the best goalie in the world. I am more inclined to believe he can find that form versus guys I know haven't played like that in a long time. So I think the frustrating part of this is we're going to have to just be patient. There are no, silver bullet fixes to the Rangers' issues. They need more bodies up front. They can't add anybody until Hedl comes back, and they need to get the goaltending going. But the only way to do that is for the goalies to play. We are going to have to be patient for the Rangers to kind of get out of this funk.
I mean, at least Kakko's back. Like and again, I hate people that are like, "Oh, well, he only has 2 goals at 28 games." But it's like he is so important to this team in so many other aspects, and genuinely, like, he should have more points than he has. He had the opportunities. He's been goal lead. He's missed the net a couple. Like, things happen. And I'm not excusing his low points percentage, but that's just, it is what it is with hockey sometimes. Sometimes the puck just doesn't bounce your way, and things will go the way you want to. But, like, Kakko is so important to that first line. I have so much more confidence in Kreider, Zibanejad, Kakko than Kreider, Zibanejad, Wheeler, or Brodzinski, or anybody else, that it just makes the rest of the team better, and I'm really glad that at the very least he's back. Yeah, I mean, it's January 15th. The trade deadline is it for another month plus? Like, we don't really, like you said, there's no instant magical fix that this team can come up with on the spot unless they do a trade earlier than the deadline, which I don't think they'll do. This is the team, and they just kind of have to ride it out until then. But they have to find a way to get that top line going at 5-on-5. Now, hopefully with Kakko back, it should be a little bit easier. And I tweeted this out the other day, a little bit tongue in cheek, but also I kind of believe this, that I haven't skated in years, but I feel like goal line to goal line, I could beat Blake Wheeler in a foot race. Like, Blake Wheeler is one of, if not the slowest players I've ever seen. And again, that's not a knock against the individual, his career, whatever. All of that, he's, nothing against him and all that. But, like, as of January 15th, 2024, I kind of feel like if I just went on eBay, bought a pair of skates, and then raced Blake Wheeler, I could beat him.
All I'm going to say is I remember somebody being very passive aggressive about how fast the Rangers were the second week of the season. And very, very quickly, the Rangers fell back to not playing strong system hockey, and their lack of team speed has caught up to them. That Kuznetsov goal that he set up Nick Dowd on is pure speed. All Zibanejad has to do is cut off Kuznetsov, and he can't do it. The first goal against, where Miller steps up. If Trouba was a decent skater, he gets back and stops that odd man rush that Mantha scores on going back the other way. The Rangers are a slow team. When you are slow foot speed wise,
I saw a tweet, and I hate to. I saw a tweet the other day when Mantha scored it. I saw somebody said something along the lines of, the slowest person on the Caps just had a wide open breakaway and scored.
Yeah,
like that can't happen. Like, that's just, if you have Stanley Cup aspirations, people can't be tweeting that against you. They can't.
So one thing I did want to say, as this is just a standalone, I didn't do an extensive amount of research on this. I only went back a couple of seasons. No team has won a Stanley Cup when they've had a player play for them that they claimed off of waivers. So Jake Bunch-of-Letters playing a game last week, that might be a bad omen. I only went back to, I think, Washington in 2018. So that might be a bad omen that Jake Bunch-of-Letters got into a game this season. But I have to
I
do more research. I have to do more
Yeah,
research on
I
that.
mean, I think that's I don't think that matters in the long term. I do think the one thing I tweeted this out early this week as well. People lost their minds when Peter Laviolette was praising Jake Bunchalletters. It's like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You're a head coach, and this is a guy that is playing in the minors, and he has to play for your team. Of course, you have to gas him up. Yeah, he's been spectacular in the AHL. He's gonna fit right in. He played one game, and now he's sitting back in the press box. Like, yeah, you're supposed to do that. This is not like Peter Laviolette's a veteran head coach. He knows how to handle players. This is somebody who's filling in. Praise him all, like, yeah, shower him with love and support. Like, what else are you supposed to do? You're the head coach of a team.
I it sucks that we as fans have to just basically take everything that is said on the record in NHL locker rooms as tongue in cheek, and that it's for optics and not what people actually think. Because to your point, yeah, in the real world, Laviolette would be like, yeah, we're down to our 18th forward, and this is our fifth call up from the AHL. He's got a pulse, he's gonna play. In the real world, we all know that. Anybody capable of a modicum of critical thinking knows that Jake Bunchalletters is not an NHL player, but Peter Laviolette can't say that because he has to massage and manage personalities in that locker room. In an ideal world, yeah, I would love for Peter Laviolette to be like, well, yeah, fuck, if nobody's going to play defense today, we're not going to win a lot of games. It'd be nice if he could just come out and say that, but he's got to be diplomatic. He's got to manage personalities and say, well, yeah, things just didn't go our way today. We played an okay game. I would like to see us improve here, here, and here. It sucks, but that's the world we live in. We have to be diplomatic in the way we address things on the record because these are people with personalities and egos that need to be managed and taken care of. In an ideal world, yeah, I wish our coaches would be more direct. I mean, the Gerard Gallant Hall of Fame liar wasn't a joke. He would just go up there and say anything. Yeah, Shesterkin's fine. His leg was amputated, but he's going to play tomorrow. Yeah, Capo Caco, he'll be back tomorrow. Oh, wow, they decapitated him and he's going to play? That's the type of stuff Gallant would get up there and say. These coaches, they are more public relations than actual, honesty. I'm not watching the post game because I think Peter Laviolette's going to give me something insightful about what happened in the game. I'm watching it to know, oh, somebody got hurt during the game. Are they going to be able to play tomorrow, or is it day to day? That's the only thing you're really going to be able to glean from the post game press conferences, that type of thing. No player goes on the record with insightful quotes. It's, we got pucks in deep, we moved our feet, we played an okay game, we got to play a full 60. I can write NHL Mad Libs very easily because I've been doing this for a while. As far as the big picture, the grand picture, the big idea, the Rangers are in decent shape, big picture. They are still well within pace to make that 100-point threshold to be a playoff team. They have good players, Shesterkin, Zibanejad, Kreider, who are underperforming right now. They have good players, Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Fox, playing good. I would say Fox probably has a little more to give. He hasn't played perfect since he's come
been a
back
lot
from
better.
Injury. Yeah, he's
recently.
getting better.
Especially offensively, where now he's actually, shooting as opposed to whatever he was doing before, which was not that. He scored what, two? I think he scored.
He had two on Washington.
He's actually. We're starting to see more of the Adam Fox that we were expecting at this stage of his career. Because before then, I mean, yeah, I get it. Coming back from injury, it takes a while to kind of get back into the rhythm and all that. Seeing him deliver offensively in the way that he did against Washington is promising, and I hope he continues to do that.
I agree with you in that respect. And yeah, same thing with Kakko. I expect as he gets more games, he will look more comfortable. Same thing when Hedl does come back. It does take a little bit of time to get your feet under you because hockey's such a feel game. Like all of these examples we've been talking about guys making a read half a second late or tying somebody up at the net front half a second late. That's all instinct. You don't have time to think. Us normal people, the non-professional athletes, when we're playing pickup, we're playing whatever, I have to think, okay, dribble, okay, pass, okay, set a pick. These guys are so gifted and so physically talented that they don't have to think about it. They are just able to instinctively react and move it where it needs to go. And the only way to get back into that rhythm is by doing it in a game. We talk about all the time. It's great they practice, but practice is nothing close to a game. So as far as getting back up to game speed, it does take time. Something I wanted to talk about on the show today, because I had this conversation with somebody a few weeks ago when I saw them, and we went to when I went to an Islander game in December. We were talking about, is it does it make sense that where the NHL is right now, that pretty much the only time we see fights in games are after clean hits? And me and this person both said it makes sense because fighting is supposed to be there for the players to police the game. If they don't want to fight, don't throw the big open ice hit. And then you'll get the retort to that. You'll get what Subban and Messier said during the game on Saturday, which is, if you don't want to fight, don't put yourself in a position where you are going to be vulnerable. Like the Brodzinski play, where, yeah, he turned, he bent over, and Wilson blew him up. In an ideal world, Brodzinski doesn't bend over, because if he's standing upright, he doesn't go face first into the glass. And that's not a nothing hit, but that's a relatively safe hit. I don't think that that is boarding by definition. I think that because he went down, because it was a big hit, it was a penalty. And then the Lindgren hit that results in the fight that Lindgren gets a penalty for, even though it's a clean hit. I think.
Well, he got the 2 minutes because he dropped
he dropped his gloves. Yeah, to protect himself, because he dropped them to get his hands up. Which is a dumb rule.
I understand, right? I understand, but the thing that we have to understand is, it doesn't matter why he did it. He dropped the gloves, therefore, hopefully he didn't. You got you got.
I'm good.
Yeah, hopefully because he dropped the gloves for whatever reason, by rule, it's a penalty. So, it's not great.
Andrew, you're doing the well actually kid thing right now.
It's not great.
Express.
Listen, I would rather there be nuance to this, but the problem is that when you add nuance to rules, you get goaltender interference, and that is going very swimmingly, as we all know.
So, but the big point I wanted to talk about here is, when else would you like these guys to fight if it's not after something that the players on the ice feel like is unacceptable? That's what I don't like about the counterpoint that the old heads will make is, well, it's a clean hit. They shouldn't have to fight for a clean hit. Well, then when would you like them to fight? Because you insist fighting stays in the game for the players to deter big hits to protect themselves. Because the game has changed, yes, Mark Messier played against guys who smoked cigarettes, drank beer, didn't wear helmets, didn't strength train in the offseason, used wooden sticks. The game is very different than when Mark Messier came up 40 years ago. Mark Messier's first season of professional hockey was 1978. Okay, what we are talking about a significantly different game than what we're seeing now. So if the guys in today's game feel like, hey, that was a big hit, I don't know if my teammate's okay, that's not okay, and they want to fight, I have no issue with that. I think if fighting is supposed to be a deterrent, like they say it is, these guys have to be willing to answer for the big hit. It's why when Trouba threw like the 5 hits in the Calgary game last year and he had to fight 3 times, I didn't have an issue with that. Calgary took exception to those hits. They felt like, hey, that's bullshit. That guy's head was down. You didn't have to hit him like that. I think that's perfectly acceptable. I don't understand this insistence that, well, no, they should only have to fight if it's a dirty play. Then take fighting out entirely.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest proponent of somebody delivers a big hit and now all of a sudden there's 8 people fighting on the ice. I'm not the biggest fan of that. Because at the end of the day, it just stops the game. But also, I see the counter argument of, okay, well, if people won't fight then, do you just want to fight when people deliver headshots, which the NHL is trying to stop anyway? Okay, well, if you do that, and the NHL, let's say, for example, the NHL successfully eradicates headshots, well, then by that point, then, okay, well, fighting will be eradicated as well. So there has to be some kind of middle ground there. Fight if you take offense to something on the ice and you want to fight to protect your teammate, go ahead. I'm not here to tell you what it's the appropriate thing to do or the best thing. if you feel that your teammate or your team got disrespected by a play, cleat or not, if your choice of action, if you think fighting is the best course of action to remedy it, go ahead.
That's exactly where I'm at. And I don't understand this notion of, well, if you put your head down, I have the right to decapitate you. I don't understand that idea. The way I have always looked at it. And yes, when I was playing hockey when I was 15, I never had in my head, oh, this guy's head is down. I need to hit him. I need to hit him. It's, I'm going to try and get the puck. I'm going to try and use my body to leverage myself to get the puck. If you go and throw that big open ice hit, all you are doing is, you can say, well, it's not a dirty hit. It doesn't matter if it's not a dirty hit. If the guy gets hit and bounces his head off the ice and ends up hurt, you threw that hit knowing that's part of that could happen. That's why I've never really felt, I don't want to say the need or the urge, but like, it doesn't that feel a little bit, I don't want to say disrespectful, but like, we're all playing a game here. Like, I shouldn't have to kill someone to make a play because my team needs to get fired up. I've never understood that line of thinking.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And I think like the best players don't think that way. If you look at the best players in the NHL, they very rarely, if ever, do those kinds of plays. How they impact the ice is by winning hockey games. And how do you win hockey games? Like you score more teams than the other team. You score more goals. Like that's how you win. Guys like McDavid, guys like Matthews, guys like Panarin, they won't fight 30 times a season. They'll go out and score 100 points and win hockey games. The guys that can't impact the game the same way, that's how they'll choose to create their own impact, is by doing these, is by fighting or by delivering these big hits or whatever, because they can't just take the puck on their stick and then just create a goal out of thin air. They don't have the talent, so they have to find some other way, and that's applauded, for better or for worse.
All right, one last thing before we get out of here. Is there any point in having an all-star game other than the awards? Like just being able to say
they got to sell the
somebody's an
jerseys.
all-star?
Like, I don't know if you know.
I know, but I think the fact that the other leagues have this problem as well, we can say that this isn't uniquely the NHL being bad like usual. This isn't just Gary Bettman and Bill Daly being bad at their jobs. Like they're wholly rigging these fan votes, because I didn't see a single vote for Alexander Georgiev. You're never going to convince me that Alexander Georgiev was the top vote-getting goaltender, and that's why he's in the All-Star game.
Well, also, can we stop with this one player per team thing? This is
you can't do that.
This is it's silly. It is objectively silly. Like, come on, man. I get it. Everyone has to be represented. Like, I get it, but no other league does this.
Yes, they do. Baseball does that.
Does he? I mean, I'm not a baseball.
Baseball does.
Okay, well, I'm okay. Well, that's
baseball also has significantly bigger rosters. Baseball, they bring like 40, 50 guys per league.
Yeah, but like, are you really sitting here and telling me that this like a Sharks representative should be there, or or any of these like bottom dwelling teams? Like I think the best of the best should be in the All-Star game because they are all-stars. And if you're not an all-star, you shouldn't be an all-star. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority there.
Logically, yes, I agree with you. We should be encouraging the best of the best, the most exciting, etc. But because, like we were talking about in regards to the coaches having to be dishonest to protect emotions and egos, Gary said it himself the other day to Elliot Friedman. I am not going to give San Jose fans a reason to not watch the All-Star game. Do I think anyone particularly cares? Not really, no. The All-Star game, by and large, nobody cares. The only people who are watching the All-Star game are the people who would watch it anyway. Those are only the most dedicated of diehard fans who are going to watch the skills contest and the All-Star game, because everybody knows these games don't matter. The NBA All-Star game is the only one that is moderately exciting, and that's just because you get to see the crazy, ridiculous alley-oop dunks and guys who don't get to play together normally. Watching a 165 to 158 basketball game isn't that exciting because there's not a lick of defense and it really just comes down to rebounding. but at least there's something there. Football and hockey, it's always going to be hard because you're never going to get buy-in. Football went to flag football for their Pro Bowl because at least they think guys will try a little bit harder if there's not as much risk of danger. Hockey, you're not going to see any defense. You're not going to see good goaltending. Nobody cares. It's going to be nothing but odd man rushes going back and forth. And at the end of the two 20-minute periods, whoever's got more goals is going to advance. I don't think there's a way to do an all-star game in today's sports landscape that's ever going to satisfy anybody because all of the leagues can't do this. All of the leagues are trying to reinvent their all-star games because they don't matter anymore. I mean, the whole point of the all-star game originally was everybody only got to watch their own team back in the day. So you would only get to see Wayne Gretzky at the all-star game. You would only get to see Pavel Bure at the all-star game. Now, we all have internet. We all can go and watch the highlights. I can see Elias Pettersson play all 82 of his regular season games and the playoffs if I want to. It's a very different ecosystem now, and I just don't know if the All-Star game matters beyond just getting the accolade. And because the voting is a sham, the accolade doesn't even matter.
No, I agree. I don't understand Georgiev getting, what was it, like 800,000 votes or whatever silly number it was. I mean, it's for the NHL. It's for the players. This is kind of like a weekend thing, and even some players don't even want to be there. It's a way to sell jerseys. It's a way to keep on the. It's more of a legacy thing at this point than a necessity. We've done this for a while. It makes sense. These are the best players in the league. We're going to highlight them. It makes that idea in the ether makes sense in a vacuum, but in 2024, when you can watch all of these players actually try whenever you want, going and watching it for free, or even crazier, spending money to go see them not try, it just doesn't, it doesn't move the needle for me anymore. And I feel like a lot of fans feel the same way. This is cool. It's a neat concept now. It's fun but players don't care. No one cares. All the GMs are on their knees at this Walmart begging their star players not to get injured at these events. No one cares, and yet, every sports league just continues to do them.
It sucks because the All-Star game used to mean something, like the baseball All-Star game used to be really good. It used to matter. The Pro Bowl, guys used to genuinely be excited to go to Hawaii. It was cool to see Peyton Manning throwing to Randy Moss in these games. It was really cool to see those types of connections where guys, in an ideal world, I should be ecstatic I'm going to see the Kachuk brothers on the same team and play hockey together. But in this environment, it doesn't really matter, and it sucks, and there's no real solution, which is why I think you're going to continue to see these leagues, I don't want to say struggle, but, fumble around in the dark. I mean, if we're going to Connor McDavid to cater the All-Star game to Connor McDavid so he will go without complaining, and we're talking about the most white bread, glass of milk guy on the planet Earth, I don't know what you're expecting. And yes, I understand the All-Star game at this point is just for the niche audience. It's for the sickos like us who will watch because we do genuinely love hockey. That's really who it's for. The NHL All-Star game is not going to attract the casual audience.
One of the problems, too, with the NHL All-Star game specifically is with other leagues who genuinely want to see players not give milk and bread, just very generic answers. Other leagues, for the most part, want to see personality out of their players and coaches and all that. The NHL wants no part of any of that. If somebody even wears anything remotely other than a suit and tie, Twitter goes insane. The old heads go insane. It's come on, man. Just a shred of personality. It's all. I don't want to hear pucks in deep for the millionth time again. I want to hear personality. I want to hear new thoughts and ideas. But if you do that, then the old heads will get mad at you.
Oh, one last thing. We didn't get to talk about this because it happened on Monday and we recorded earlier in the day. What do you think about Drysdale for Gauthier?
What a strange deal. Gauthier didn't want to be in Philly for whatever reason those are. He wanted out. Jamie Drysdale was good in Anaheim, but he was kind of hitting that like he was kind of hitting that. I'm blanking on the word
Hitting a
here.
wall.
Yeah, I mean he was kind of hitting a wall of he's good, but he's not this like he wasn't turning into this exceptional player at Anaheim. That trade happens. It was a very out of the blue thing. And again, I want to reiterate that the team accounts beat the insiders to it for the million. Like, it keeps. Also, after that happened, I saw some of the insiders who shall not be named. You know who you are, who would post a picture of a player with the googly eyes emoji and then just tweet it. Hey, either tell us what you know or don't tweet for interactions. Don't do that. It's silly. It's so silly. It gets on my mind. It gets on my nerves, and I hate it here. But the trade itself, listen, Gauthier didn't want to be in Philly. He gets a new start in Anaheim. They got a great player from what I understand that Gauthier is. Philly needed another defenseman, and he's been great in Philly for what I understand. That he's been a good fit there. So we'll see. I mean, it's not a trade that we'll see the results of now. I think this is a trade that we'll get back to in a few years once we see Gauthier actually in the NHL to kind of get a sense of, was this a great trade, a terrible trade, or something in between?
I wish more teams would do stuff like this. I wish more teams would realize, hey, we've drafted in the top 10 of the draft for 7 years in a row, and we've taken all of these forwards or all of these defensemen. Let's turn one of our defensemen into our forwards. Like the best example of this I can think of was the Rangers trading I forget who for Julien Gauthier. Like that was the best version of this I could think of in regards to the Rangers, where we've drafted all of these defensemen. We took Zach Jones, Matthew Robertson, K'Andre Miller, Nils Lundqvist. We're not going to need another defenseman. Let's go out and get a forward. I wish more teams were willing to do the player for player trades in hockey, because I think it's an underutilized market. I think it's an underutilized strategy of trading a position of strength for a position of weakness. I think we are too susceptible in hockey to only trading assets and prospects for insert player here, as opposed to trying to do these hockey trades. I think part of the reason you were actually able to see this trade work is because both of these guys didn't make a lot of money, and both of these teams had a little bit of cap flexibility in relation to what the average team is. But I like the idea for both teams. I like what it says for Philly that they realized, hey, he's not going to come. Let's not drag this out. And this rewards the team that is playing well right now. I like when teams do that, where even if they're overachieving, this isn't dramatically speeding up their timeline because Drysdale fits their window for a lot of their guys. But I do like what it says, that the message Danny Briere is sending to his team that, hey, I appreciate you guys are busting your asses out there. We are in a playoff spot right now, and we didn't expect to do that. I'm going to reward you. I'm going to go out there and get a legitimate top 4 defenseman that, if we put in a good situation, might be even better than that. Very slowly but surely, Cam York, Travis Sanheim, Drysdale, that's a pretty solid 1, 2, 3. We've laughed at the Flyers' inability to develop defensemen, draft defensemen for a while. They got a solid 1, 2, 3. When Carter Hart's right, he's pretty good. You got Morgan Frost, Konechny, Owen Tippett, Couturier. That's a pretty solid group. It's not a world beater. Even if they make the playoffs, I don't expect them to be able to do a whole lot. But they've made a decent amount of progress. And, that's something to be highlighted. You can turn a team around pretty quickly if you are ambitious. You don't have to take 10 years like the Sabres, 5 years like the Ducks or the Red Wings.
Well, the one caveat that I'll add to that is teams hate giving up on their own prospects. That's the thing, is if you're a general manager and you've been through 4 or 5 drafts, you don't want to give away the people that you drafted. Because you believed in them at the beginning. And if you trade them away, you are essentially saying, hey, I failed at picking the correct player in this position. Let's make a trade here to bring in somebody else, and from another team that did a better job at drafting at this position, at this situation, than I was. That, whether people like to think about it that way or not, at least in the NHL, that's what happens a lot of the time. The Rangers did it with Lieber Hayek. They got him in that trade from Tampa Bay. They knew he was a disaster fire, but they they had to hold on to him, or at least they felt like they had to hold on to him for years because they needed to show that they weren't wrong. That trade wasn't awful for them, which it was, but they clung on to this hope that Libor Hayek would just wake up one day and remember and discover how to play hockey at the NHL level. That never happened, and eventually finally realized, yeah, this is not going anywhere. They have to move on. Teams are so reluctant to move on from mistakes that they've made that they would rather hold on and just hope that the people that they've drafted suddenly become better than what they are, as opposed to realizing they made a mistake and making a trade to rectify it. They'd rather just just give him a ninth chance, and eventually they'll show that he can play. It's like I go and give somebody so many chances.
All right, that'll just about do it for this week's episode of the Liberty Blue Podcast. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, or over on YouTube as well. We are live every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. We will see you guys next week.
Later.